Mr. Taylor. I'm a teacher at Central Road School at the Palatine School District, and I'm here with my teammate.
Flip it this way. I'm Miss Fairbanks.
And we're here at the Rolling Meadows
Hi,
Museum.
guys.
Come join us. We're gonna mask up, so we're gonna be in close quarters with the volunteers here. So come on in. We're gonna check out what's going on.
All right, here we go. We're gonna go inside.
Welcome to the
Make
Rolling
sure you're
Meadows
muted.
Museum and Educational Center. How's everybody doing there over there at Central Road School? Well, my name is Kent. I just wanted to welcome you to our wonderful museum, a museum filled with 65 years of Rolling Meadows history. So come on into the museum and say hello. But hey kids, did you know back in 1955, we didn't always have a chance to go to the grocery store, so we had milk delivery people come to our homes. And what this is called a milk box. And milk was placed into the container. We also received dairy products such as eggs, butter, cream. So those things were delivered maybe twice a week, 3 times a week. So that was a luxury for us at that time. So welcome to the Educational Center. This Educational Center was finished and dedicated back in July of 2002. 2002. And as you start to come through our beautiful Educational Center, Robert, I want to have you look at this flag. Children, do you notice anything different about this flag? Well, I'm going to tell you. It has 48 stars. And I'm just letting you know, in 1959, it changed. It was because of 2 states were added to the Union, and this particular flag now has 50 stars today, but because of Alaska and Hawaii being added to our Union, that is why it is only 48 stars.
My favorite piece of trivia about that, Kent, I got 2. One for Alaska, and that is that Alaska is both the furthest west and furthest east state in the United States because it crosses the 180th meridian. The second thing is Hawaii started a fashion trend. Once Hawaii was admitted into the Union, Hawaiian shirts became popular all throughout the United States.
That's an interesting topic and a very interesting point. Who knows, maybe one day down the road, we may add another state to the Union depending on where it goes.
Yeah. Show us something else, Ken.
Well, I'm going to take you back over here, Robert.
Okay.
I'm going to come back over here. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, down below, those are called encyclopedias. Today, we know Wikipedia and other sources of information. We used to have people that would come to our homes and sell us volumes of information. So we looked forward to that because we didn't have phones like you young people do today. But we would get a whole volume, and they would probably try to come and sell you maybe once a year, twice a year, and then you'd have to buy supplements because constantly, as a history major myself, we are constantly learning and evolving. Information is always changing.
So this actually looks like what would be our version of a computer. You have your information there, you have some ways to record information here. What's this gadget?
Well, that's a good question. This is called an adding machine. Well, now we have calculators. You would punch in numbers. Of course, it's not printing out the paper source because we used everything with paper. Now we're trying to eliminate paper. So you would do this. Some people were very, very quick in getting the information onto their computer. Probably the best source of an accountant's use of numbers. Next to it was the typewriter. Oh my gosh. You know, we used to use carbon paper. You probably don't know what carbon paper is. We used to have to put 2 pieces of paper along with a black piece of carbon paper that allows you actually to make a copy. Today we have copy machines that makes it much easier.
You know what I have, Kent, that makes it even easier? I hit Control-C, and boom, make a copy.
There you go. So all you do, and we had a lot of the ladies, and I don't mean this to be, but a lot of the ladies were called secretaries. Today, many of the people might have a secretary, but that was a very big thing for a woman. I'm going to use the word of woman to do because of the fact that she was very responsible and she really controlled the executives and she was keeping people on schedule. But not only that, her boss would call her and she would have to use the phone. This is called a rotary dial phone. We would have to dial 10 digits. Maybe we only had to dial 7 because we didn't have an area code at that time. And then of course, early on in our life, guess what, Robert? We may have to have a party line because at that time there weren't that many lines in use. And so you would have to get onto the phone and talk and say, Mabel, could you connect me or could we please get into the call?
So wait a second, are you telling me you shared your phone line with a neighbor?
Unfortunately, yes, that was in the beginning. And again, in 65 years, so much has changed.
Sure.
When we first moved here, we didn't really have other than one area code, and I believe it was 312. 312. And as the course of the people that kept moving out into the suburbs, area codes kept changing. We had 847, 708, and on and
Right.
on. And for a while we thought, are we gonna run out of numbers?
Well, I know why we're not gonna run out of numbers. When the area code system first came out, they gave the shortest pulls to the 3 largest areas in the country. That was New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. So if you look at this phone, 312, 3, 1, and 2 is right here. For a larger area, it was a shorter pull, and it was easier for operators to manage. Let's take a city or a state even like Florida. Florida was not well populated back in the 50s because air conditioning wasn't popular yet. So they got one area code for the whole state, and I believe it's 305. You got 3 here. You got to come all the way over here for the 0, and then do the 5. And I'll tell you what, I'm sure there were some missed dials back then because you had to make a perfect rotary turn. Actually, getting back to the typewriters, look at this here, Ken. I see that an electric typewriter was out back in that time, and they cost about $100. That does not seem cheap in that kind of money.
No, no. But again, when you bought a typewriter, your typewriter lasted a long time. It wasn't like today with technology, maybe within a year's time frame, where it becomes outdated. And we used to have things in our home for a lengthy period of time. Things were built sturdy, strong, and tough. These phones, I mean, they were built tough, like us. We were the pioneers of the Rolling Meadows area, because this, when it was first developed by Mr. Kimball Hill.
Tell me more about him.
Well, Kimball Hill was our founder. He was the builder of Rolling Meadows. He was an individual. He wanted people to move out from probably Chicago. This was a period after World War II where a lot of the people who lived in the city wanted to get away from the big city life. I know my folks did. So he built this particular community called Rolling Meadows. And when you think about meadows, it was basically farmland. Okay, Robert, there wasn't anything out here.
Just
it was
trees.
Flat. It was flat. And so if you see some of the pictures that you're going to see behind us, you will see flat farmland. But this soil was extremely rich. That's one of the things about Rolling Meadows area. Our soil was so good for planting trees and things because of what the farmers did previously, how they maintained the soil. And right now today, when you think about people, we want to do things such as conserve the soil, make things better for future generations, I think. And that's, he was far thinking of his time and day.
And from what I understand, right after World War II, about 40% of Americans lived in a home that they owned or were working at paying off. And by the 1960s, that was up to 60%. So we're talking about a 50% jump. In my imagination, it's people like Kimball Hill all across the country who developed cities that made that jump.
Absolutely. And not only that, in this particular area, besides Rolling Meadows, we had other developing communities and things just were popping. People wanted new areas to expand to. Kind of like when you think about people in the 1800s when they were moving west to, let's say, Colorado and California for the gold rush. If you think about it, this was our gold rush.
Yeah.
Because people were moving to this rich soil a new life
Right.
into the little, when I say little, compared to Chicago, this was a little community, but it was a very cozy and very warm.
And having grown up in this community at that time, what was the big invention that made it possible for your family to move out here?
I'm trying to think.
My imagination is it's the automobile.
Well, we only had, that's interesting that you say that. I'm thinking about this. Robert asked me a question because when I moved here, I was only 5 years old, and I don't really remember too much about a vehicle. But you're absolutely correct, because when my mom and I lived in Chicago, the only way we got around was via the bus or public transportation.
Yeah.
So you kind of caught me off guard, but
That's all right.
that's a very good point.
Ted, show us what the houses look like back then.
Well, Robert, when you look at some of the homes here, there were only 2 choices of a home that you could pick at the time. So when, let's say, Bob and Estelle came over and they were looking at a new home, they had their choice of either a 2-bedroom or you could have a 3-bedroom. And as you can see on the prices that were there, at the time, that was expensive. I mean, today we look at those prices and say, gee, that's so affordable and things of that nature. But because of the developing prices, inflation, and things like that, the home prices today in this area have, I'm going to use the word skyrocketed.
Sure.
But one interesting fact about this particular home, especially the 3-bedroom, was the fact that there were 3 families that moved into Rolling Meadows back in the 50s, and they had a parent, a man and a wife. They had 10 children. So 12 people lived in a 3-bedroom home with 1 bathroom.
Well, when we get inside the actual house, I'm going to be interested to see how that
We
work.
will take and show you that a
Because
little bit later.
from my understanding, these original prices also did not include a garage,
That is correct.
included a gravel driveway, and it wouldn't even include downspouts or gutters. So
And
they're
matter of fact-
basic homes.
And one other thing we had was what they called a crawl space.
And here,
A crawl space,
yeah, picture of that actually. All right. Sorry, keep going.
which was a crawl space. And a crawl space was underneath, and if let's say there was a storm coming, we'd have to pull in the closet, we'd have to pull the cabinet up, and we'd have to crawl under the house. Like recently, we just had the derecho come through in Iowa. This was about a month ago. And it's to protect you from bad weather, storms, anything happening.
And I'll tell you what I'm seeing, a last name that looks familiar, Art here, and you, maybe share something.
Well, kids, I just want to let you know that's my father. He's standing in front of our barbecue grill. My dad, yes, Art, his barbecue grill was the most wonderful thing. We used to have picnics out in the backyard. We were talking about this just a little bit earlier about grills, how today most of you probably know Weber Grill, which has become a very well-known barbecue grill company in the United States. But it had its beginnings right down in the community next to us in Palatine, Illinois.
In my imagination is when you lived in the city, you couldn't really throw a Weber out on your back fire escape. And that by moving to the suburbs, it really created a new industry.
Well, it was an outdoor experience for every family, especially on weekends. It was a real gift. And not only that, one of the things I like to point out about the homes is even though the homes were relatively small, we had huge yards. We had large yards for we kids to play. We could play baseball, we could do all sorts of things. In our backyard, we had 4 apple trees. That was a big deal for us. We went out and picked apples. So it became like an apple orchard to us.
Do you want to tell me about this church?
Well, that's a good question too.
It says First Church in Rolling Meadows.
Well, this was the first church in Rolling Meadows. Actually, I went there.
You must have been a lot smaller.
Well, it was kind of difficult to get in, but on the other hand, I have grown since then. But I went to the church as a 5-year-old. I attended Sunday school in a chicken coop. I went to Sunday school in a stall. When we celebrated Christmas, gang, I just wanted to let you know it was a very special moment because of the fact we actually had birds flying in the church and it felt like it was the Christmas Eve. It was so cozy, pleasant.
Where would this start in Kent? Where would this be located? Like, what was the nearest cross street?
Well, this was located on Kirchhoff Road. I don't know if anybody remembers the bowling alley. It was over in that venue right there. And some people thought that they moved the barn over, but they really didn't.
So for the kids who use Kirchhoff to get to the library, there's a little library road. I'm guessing it was right there.
It's right in that area.
That area, okay.
Right in that area.
Okay,
Yes.
that's kind of neat. All right, well, moving on, I see something that a lot of kids will recognize right away, and that's Elvis. That's just a great way to put a time frame on when this neighborhood was being built. Elvis was just becoming popular.
Well, Elvis was a big celebrity back in the 50s. If you probably remember, I'm trying to think, does anybody remember the Beatles? They were huge. Today you probably think of Justin Bieber. I'm trying to think something because I'm not as young as you.
Generally I don't, Ken, but that's okay.
Well, one of the things I brought you, because we're talking about the records today, everybody's streaming and they're downloading. This is one of my books. It's called The Little Taxi. This is actually a record. And so you'd read the book, but then when you're done, you actually put the record onto the record player, and it would actually play the busy, busy traffic song. And I remember that fondly as a child. So this is kind of a collector's piece.
Show me what's next to it there.
Well, a lot of times when people would come to your home, what they would do is, instead of knocking, they might ring the bell.
Now tell me, Kent, where is that plugged in?
It's not plugged into anything.
It's an actual bell.
I like to call it a chime,
Okay.
but I will tell you that is a workhorse chime. It just continues to work, and a lot of the young people today really appreciate hearing that particular bell because it's so unusual.
Tell me about Crawford's. I've heard a lot about it. I didn't start my career here in this town till after it was gone.
Well, Crawford's department store was the department store in Rolling Meadows. You may have heard of Marshall Fields in its day, which the Fields family was very prominent within the Chicagoland area. So the Crawfords came into our store. They were located in the Rolling Meadows Shopping Center. They were at the very end, probably the furthest away, if you know the Rolling Meadows Shopping Center today, from the Jewel.
So the furthest west from there.
It's the furthest west, but it was attached. The thing that made Crawford so unique was it had all types of services. They had alteration, gift wrap, and all of these things, I believe at the time, were offered free of charge. And one other thing that was interesting, in the very basement, they had a section dedicated to the Boy and Girl Scouts, meaning you can buy all of your equipment, your uniforms, all of the things pertinent to the children of that day. And Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts were a very big deal in our community. Today I know a lot of you are probably doing sports, you have so many different types of activities, but that was very, very big in our day.
And from my understanding, it opened in the late 50s, and it was the hub of why the Rolling Meadows Shopping Center took off.
Correct.
And that when it went out of business, I believe in 1993, it caused a lot of other businesses to also close down. And a combination of big box stores like Walmart that were moving in, plus we've had Woodfield Mall moved into the area in 1971. And from what I understand, Rolling Meadows had a really big hit that year, wound up being almost $1.5 million in trouble for paying bills because they were not getting that revenue. And we saw in Rolling Meadows the largest real estate tax jump of all times, which I believe was 40%, which is amazing. Yeah.
You know, I just want to touch and talk a little bit about that too. It was the development of the mall shopping center. We had Woodfield Mall developed in '71, I believe. Then we also had the Randhurst Shopping Center develop. So what you saw was a transition of just track shopping centers, now going into mall shopping centers. And if you think about today, the retail environment,
Switching again.
Switching away from the retail mall environment, and you're doing many more things online. So I think transition and change is always good. It just takes sometimes a little bit of time to go away from things, and you don't want to say goodbye, because I was a history major.
Yeah. And you know, I'll tell you, Ken, there are so many wonderful things in this room that we've only touched on a few. It'd be great for the kids and the families to come out. There's an amazing amount of things here to really absorb. But we don't want to run out of time because some of these kids got to go to math class. Take us to the house.
For this location, as you come in here, you're going to be coming into the kitchen area. Once again, you will see this time it's a wall phone, which we saw before was a desk phone. This is what they call a wall phone.
And generally speaking, Ken, am I right, that would probably be the only phone in your house?
Correct, correct. Right above it, I'm just going to show you this because this is an original. People would have what they call a phone directory, had advertising in there. And people's names would be in there with their phone number. And again, you don't see phone books like we used to have them, but this was almost like a Bible to know where your friends lived inside.
Right. And I'll tell you, as the heart of the house, it looks like you've got this well populated with a lot of cool stuff. Let's just go over, let's learn about a few things in here.
Well, first of all, today, if you had a baby, and a lot of the folks moved into this area, we didn't have disposable things, but this is a baby bottle warmer for the child. So the wife, or the mother, excuse me, would come over here. She would put this into the sterilizing device, and she would heat this on the stove. And then, of course, you would put the formula or whatever the baby would be eating. But again, it probably was formula.
And if it was empty, you'd actually be cleaning it, sterilizing it.
Correct. Robert, why don't you open up that refrigerator?
How,
How do you do that?
this thing's locked shut. You got something important in here? Nope.
Oh,
Look at that.
Robert is very strong. What I wanted you to see about this particular refrigerator, they pretty much were about the same size at this time. You're probably bigger than the refrigerator. So what you would have your...
And I think they should, on the other end, understand, this is actually a working model. You can see the frost built up here.
And I was going to bring that up because what you had to do, like once a month or once every couple of weeks, you would actually have to go and take out all of your produce from inside, and then you'd actually have to put hot water in there and defrost the whole thing.
Yeah.
Today, everybody has much larger stoves, and you also have side-by-sides.
And I could imagine in the summertime when it's humid that frost builds up pretty quick. So I'm going to shut it and then lock it down. All safe stuff again.
Your stove, when you think about stoves, I'm going to take you folks, children, pardon me, is to the fact that when my mother created a Thanksgiving dinner, we did not have a microwave. We did not have any of the other alternative things. We didn't have a dishwasher. We didn't have any of the luxuries that you have today. So my mother probably put her turkey in there, and she would have everything going. She would have mashed potatoes going on the stove. And so what's really amazing today is that a homemaker, excuse me, one more time, is that she can create a whole meal out of one oven, stove, and get everything done on the table at 2 o'clock so that you can watch. Well, we didn't really have football games like they have today.
You know, I'm noticing something very different than our kitchen of today, and it's that there's a real lack of counter space. And I kind of picked up on that. If these weren't here, I could flip this little lever down, and I got some more space.
Correct.
Over time, the things that would populate a counter, like I see a bread box back there, which was important for keeping your bread fresh. But I also see a little nifty gadget over here, which might be on a counter nowadays, but it's a whole separate appliance with its own step. Can you tell me what that's all about?
That is called a broaster. A broaster, not a lot of families had that in their homes at this time. And the reason being is that it was an extension of the stove. It allowed you maybe to cook a second turkey, maybe a ham, and it gave you an opportunity to really cook more. And then also you mentioned storage. You had a lot more storage underneath that you could put pans and pots and things of that nature. Over to your left, Robert, is the ironing board.
Yes, I'm seeing some unique things here. First of all, for the girls, this was a very popular item. And if I'm not mistaken, poodles were a big thing. You usually have a poodle skirt. So that really is a throwback to the 50s. But I'm also seeing, why do they have 7-Up over here?
Well, Robert, it's actually not 7-Up. What that is, it's used for watering the garments, whether it's a shirt, a skirt, a blouse. When you put the water on there, it allowed it to become a little bit more fresh. And so when you ran the iron, which is right next to it, it allowed the fabric to be creased much more easily.
Okay,
And,
so I'm seeing that this has a little, it's like a gardening can,
mhm.
a cork top. And so you could just buy this unit. I'm sure they sold it at the grocery store. And instead of the irons of nowadays having the little spritzer, you just use this. It's interesting.
And you could use any type of soda pop.
Any soda pop. And that's, look at all the things in this kitchen, kids. There's all sorts of things to explore. But one of the things that really catches my eye is this clock.
That is very unique. I think most homes in the time had a cat or a kitty clock. It tells time. The one unique thing too about that, it's not like an LED or it's not digital. It's actually that you can see the numbers, and
It moves.
many of them had a second hand, and so it.
And if I'm not mistaken, Kent, well, one, if it's operational, this tail and the eyes move sequentially with the second.
Correct.
So they're constantly moving.
Correct.
I know the original version of this came in black, and they added the bow tie and the front hands in the 50s, and this bejeweled one I think came out in the 60s. But the important thing to note about this cat clock is they made almost 10 million of them. And along with making them, all made in the United States, this company only sourced its parts from the United States. So to get the little motor that runs inside, they were buying a lot of these motors, which offered other clock companies to buy those same motors. And that kind of started a boom with having a clock, let's say, on top of a mantle or on top of your TV. Before then, you didn't have clocks that sat like that. So this company really did start a revolution.
Wonderful.
What's in here? We got what seems to be a living room.
Well, follow us. We're going to be going into the living room. This is where we did most of our entertaining, meaning we did not have, at the beginning, we did not have family rooms, great rooms, or anything of that nature. The focus thing, of course, was you would have your sofa, some chairs. The major focus point in our room here is the television set. I think your eyes are drawn to the TV.
Yeah.
When we first moved here, the TV was much smaller. It had like a opening drawers to it. This was a very unique piece. Today, there are many channels being offered. When we were little, we only basically had 5 stations in this area. And on top of the TV, what you see, those are called antenna ears. Antenna ears. If you wanted to get better reception from Chicago, wherever the source was, you would turn this. And I remember my family, we would be turning this, trying to get the best reception for the program.
And you know what I find interesting is when you moved here in 1954, I know the stats from that time is just only about every other family had a TV in their house. So my imagination is, I could see getting together to watch a TV show at someone's house being a pretty big deal.
It is a big deal. And when it came time, we did not have recording devices, Robert. What we had to do is when a program came on at 6:30, let's say after dinner, everybody had to voice their opinion about what we wanted to watch. And we had many family discussions as to what program we were going to watch, especially on Sunday night. Today, if you think about how many channels we have at least hundreds available to us.
I see something interesting on the wall here, this sunburst clock. The sunburst style has been around for centuries, but it pops back into culture when certain important things come around. Like right now I'm imagining the 50s were the age of space, when people were trying to get out into space and putting satellites out into space, and this whole concept of a sunburst became popular again. To the right, I also see an interesting closet full of some garments.
Yes, you remember when people moved here after the World War II, many of the men and women that returned were served in the military. And so what you see there is a variety of military uniforms. Not every closet would, of course, have this many. This is a representative of some of our wonderful war veterans that came to us.
And being a vet is one of the reasons why this neighborhood built so quickly. And that's that if you were a vet, and at that time there was World War II and also the Korean conflict, you were able to get a very reasonable home loan. It made it very doable to come out here and buy a house.
Right. And you can, currently, if you look at the floor, gang, is the fact that you're gonna see the tile. These are floor tiles. It was offered basically in two styles. I think it was black or black and gray or some brown in it. But again, when you had the choices, if you think about going to a store with your parents, whether it's Home Depot or something of that sort, today, again, multiple choices. But in our day, we were very limited to what we were able to select.
Yeah, and how about wall-to-wall carpeting?
I don't think many. You have to remember, when we moved here, there was so much dirt and dust.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that.
You wouldn't want that.
And I
because,
wonder if it was even offered. That'd be a good question for the kids to research.
oh my gosh, great question.
When was the first wall-to-wall carpeting offered?
Right.
All right, can you show us another room?
Well, why don't we go back in the back bedroom to the children's room, because I think you guys are probably really going to appreciate a child's room. One of the things you'll see here, I don't know if you guys are going to know who this is. This is one of my favorite TV characters. His name was Howdy Doody, and he had a partner named Buffalo Bob Smith. And if you read anything about him, and I hope you might do a report on him, he was the front runner of all children's programming after the 50s.
And he started out as a radio show, correct?
Correct. Oop.
And Buffalo Bob was actually from Buffalo, New York. The interesting thing about Howdy Doody is when they first had the puppet out, the designer of the puppet was very proud of the design of the puppet. When it came on TV, now everyone was seeing the puppet. The show decided that it'd be a great way to sell some stuff. We're going to sell the dolls too. Well, this gentleman did not like that idea. So he took the puppet, the only puppet, and he left with it. And so Buffalo Bob had to go on TV and talk about why Howdy Doody was not there anymore. And so Howdy was on a very secret mission. And when he came back, he was surely going to look different. It's because he had some sort of plastic surgery to keep him in hiding. And so that's how they smoothed out live TV having an issue.
Howdy, thank you very much for all you did for us and for all you children. You know what this is, Robert?
I do. I'm not going to try it.
This is called a hula hoop.
All right, I'll try it.
This is probably one of the most unique toys. It's probably a great form of exercise.
Not bad.
But I remember as a little kid, there was a contest over in the Rolling Meadows Shopping Center to see who could do the hula hoop the longest.
What place would I get with that?
He wouldn't even be into the competition, and he certainly is not going to be at the 2021 Olympics. Let me tell you that much. Another thing behind you is this, because this was one of my favorite toys to play with. I think today you know what we call Legos, gang. These were called Lincoln Logs, and Lincoln Logs were interlocking pieces of wood.
Show us how that works. Can you show me?
Are you sure?
Because I know a little bit about Lincoln Logs.
You could. You just keep doing things, and of course, Robert, you'd have to keep going because maybe one size is smaller than the other. But that was the part, just the same as Legos, is because you'd have to work and make something out of whether it's a log or whatever the case might be, a log cabin.
The interesting thing about Lincoln Logs is that the inventor of Lincoln Logs is the son of a very famous architect named Frank Lloyd Wright. His son and Mr. Wright went to Japan, and the son saw this, I believe it was a hotel, and it was built to withstand earthquakes. And it had a system like that as a base that was able to shift and allow the hotel not to get destroyed. So he came back with the idea of, I'm going to make this a kid's toy. And sure enough, they're still made today. They're still made out of wood. I think there was a time in the 70s where they made them out of plastic, just like everything else was made out of plastic for a little while. But the other unique thing I'm seeing in here is that none of this stuff runs on batteries.
No. Everything, to the most part, other than maybe your record player, which was run with electricity,
Plugged in.
but everything else was child powered, meaning that we had to actually use energy, our own energy, to make the toys work. Another thing you'll see here, many of the games, board games, were very big. You had just numerous board games.
Well,
whether
this
it's
was
chess,
the
Scrabble.
50s and 60s version of Fortnite, right? You got together with your friends and actually played games together. Nice.
And not only that, this was the highlight. You would buy a pair of roller skates, or you would ask for your mom and dad to buy you a pair of roller skates. What you would do is you would put your foot down, and you would put, my foot's too big for it, but you would put your foot in there and you would attach the skate to your shoe, and off you go.
Seems very stable, Ken.
Well, it's much more stable than rollerblades.
Probably. And Kent, the bunk beds, I would imagine when you talked about having 10 kids in a family that bunk beds were probably pretty popular in Rolling Meadows.
That's a very good point. I think if you think about someone having 10 children in a room, they probably had 2 bunk beds
Side by
within this
side.
room handling 4 children. The thing, if you look behind you, is the closet space. If you stop and think about closet space, how do you clothe 10 children having different styles of clothing? And it would be very difficult because you would have to find those clothes in that closet.
So my imagination is you had your play clothes, your school clothes, and your Sunday day clothes.
Pretty much.
That's all you needed.
And Paige, behind you, I don't mean to look at that beautiful painting. I did several of those as a child, and I thought I was a Rembrandt or a Picasso. Those are called paint by numbers. Paint by numbers. Those were extremely big in the 50s.
You know what? They were so big that in the White House they actually had a gallery of paint-by-number paintings. Eisenhower loved doing paint-by-numbers, and so did a lot of people on his staff. Eisenhower's the president during the 50s. He did 2 terms, and so they had a whole gallery where the staff could hang their paint-by-number pictures.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they were that popular.
Well, I'm not an artist, and so it really allowed me the luxury of thinking that I was.
It's a good
But I
feeling.
don't-
Can we, I noticed right out here, right in the hallway, we have something that would almost seem dangerous to me. We have the furnace and the hot water heater.
They were put in the house, so easy access. Most of the families would build some kind of a screen or a device to hide them.
Remember this?
But remember my father, we would have to change the furnace filter to make sure that it was constantly clean. Yeah, so I mean, yes, this was the source. If you stop and think early on, what did most people have? They had fireplaces to the most part.
Right.
These were really the wonderful time to have furnace to heat and stay warm in the Midwest. And you may want to just poke your nose into
Yeah,
the
let's check this out.
the
Here's a
bathroom.
bathroom, and like you said, you're servicing a whole family. This is the one bathroom. I
One
don't see a lot of
bathroom.
storage here. So my imagination is you kept it simple.
Yes. But you just want to be always aware of, let's say the dad had to get to work at maybe 8 o'clock or whatever the case might be.
Don't get in his way.
Don't get in his way. He probably was well, first of all, he was the breadwinner. He was the person that brought home the money to do everything for you. But on the other hand, then you had everybody, the wife getting ready. She probably was up probably before everybody else, and then
Sure.
of course the children. You know what it's like getting yourself up in the morning, showered, eating breakfast, doing all of those things. Also, if you have brothers and sisters, then you know what it's like, what it's trying to get into the
Sure.
bathroom. So,
All right, Kent, I see a couple more rooms
a
here.
couple more rooms.
We're clearly in the deluxe 3-bedroom model.
Yes, we are. This is a luxury. Now, this would be if they had a baby, this would be a baby's room. If you look at it's called a crib. Today, this probably would not be allowed because of the new regulations and restrictions because of the various
Well, I remember, like this, the slide up and down on this, I don't think that is allowed anymore, but I'm
No.
not positive. I grew up with a crib like that, though.
Well, we all did. I mean, another thing is looking at the rocking horse. It's called a rocking flamingo.
Yeah.
But most children had rocking horses, And I know my niece, when she was little in the 70s, they had those bouncing
Right.
little things. But this was the way a tyke or a young child could get their exercise.
All right.
One other thing you'll see on the top over there is you'll see a vaporizer. Right now, vaporizer is extremely important for breathing. What sometimes my mother would do, she would add Vicks Vapor Rub to it.
Oh, I see a can of that right there, and I remember that as a child.
Well, it was a way of helping you breathe.
Yeah.
And that, we didn't have as many luxuries of medications as we do today. And of course, you'll see the buggies, toys, and again, other than the lamps in here, everything else pretty much is driven by children.
Yeah. All right, let's see this last bedroom.
Well,
For a second, I thought we were walking into a carpeted room, but this is just a throw rug.
and sometimes they didn't have that, of course. Well, one of the things you'll see first, of course, is the bed. On here is an assortment of hats and caps. My mother and father both were big haberdasher lovers, meaning they loved hats, and so do I to this day. But you will see when, let's say, certain holidays came out, such as Easter, many of the ladies would run to the store looking for their brand new Easter bonnet. Easter bonnet. And right behind you, going along with that theme of new clothing, what you see there is a Singer sewing machine. Many of the homes back in the 50s had a sewing machine, and the homemaker of the house, she would get a pattern. It could be bought or she could get it through the mail. And what they would do is they would follow a pattern and they would make a new dress. If they had many children, of course, maybe you would get a dress made out of the cloth that she purchased at Crawford's.
Right.
Because they did have clothing.
So people didn't just buy clothes, they bought fabric. And they went home and made the clothes themselves.
Correct.
That's pretty amazing. I don't know anyone to this day who does that.
This is the third type of phone that you've seen. This is called a princess phone, a princess phone. You saw basically a home phone, you saw a wall phone. This came out, and I'll tell you, gang, this particular phone was my mother's favorite phone because you could actually get it in multiple colors.
Right.
My mother got a light blue phone.
And you know what's interesting? It was called the Princess Phone. It was marketed to women. When it first came out, it did not have a ringer. You needed a main phone, so it was a great way to sell an additional product to someone who was already a subscriber to a phone company.
Uh-huh.
They were so light that they also sold a lead weight that would go on the bottom so that it didn't drag. And they were popular because you could take a private call in another room, not be in the kitchen having everyone listen to your phone call.
Absolutely.
So it's a unique switch from how we went from a party line to your own phone to now having a second phone in the house. All right. Kent, tell me your hours and location.
Well, currently we are open Sundays 1 to 4. We're open and we want to see you as soon as possible.
And what's the address here?
The address is 3100 Central Road in Rolling Meadows, Illinois.
Thank you very much, Kent, for having us out.
In touch.
There you go.